Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you all. So, it's time finally to cover Pure Spright. This is another one of the videos that I think quite a few of you have been looking forward to as far as post-banlist decks. This is definitely one of the decks as far as like tier 1 and or 2, 3, whatever upper tier decks that got hit the hardest by the list, losing not only one of the copies of Jet, but also one of the copies of Swap Frog. So, there were a lot of people who initially, after the ban list got announced, were kind of thinking, like, can Pure Spright even really be a thing moving forward? Like, surely one of the variants that is less impacted by the loss of the frog, like the Tri-Spright or the Twin Spright, something like that, might emerge, or like Runic Spright as the best variant. But after playing just a little bit with this Spright list, I am pretty confident that Pure Spright is definitely still the best variant. I played it for just a little bit here, and in Diamond I managed to go, usually I try to play like a dozen at the very least games, you know, just to get enough good quality games for a video here, even though I usually only end up showing 4, you know, I just want to make sure again that I'm getting enough good duels. But when I was playing with this deck, I only had to play 8, like I went 6 and 2, which, you know, if that had been an MCS, that would have been a top right there. So, yeah, I'm already feeling very confident about Spright. Granted, I did win the coin flip a lot, so there is that. But, you know, I do think that just playing with this deck and doing the turn 1 combo lines, it just doesn't feel any different. Like, it doesn't feel any less powerful than it did before. It can definitely do all the same stuff it did before, and it doesn't even really feel any less consistent, to be totally honest here. One of the things that I really like about Pure Spright in general, but especially in this meta, is just how wide open and available for text the main deck is, right? So for this variant that I put together, I initially was playing the Triple Tactics talent mainly as like placeholder slots because, you know, the meta was so new. I didn't know exactly what tech-specific slots I wanted to place here. But as I played more and more with the deck, because it's been a while since I've played 3 Triple Tac in a deck, I really just forgot how good this card was. Like, it impressed me enough that, like, in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have talked about this in like the top 5 tech cards to look out for the new meta, because this card has been overperforming for me. Like, I already love Triple Tech, I already think this card's insane, and in this format, it's been absolutely nuts for me. I think it's very, very good, and moving forward, I'm probably just going to have at least 2, if not 3, in the deck here. One of the things I did add to improve consistency, I may have been playing this in Pure Spright already, but I don't think I was in Pure, is Foolish Burial. Mainly here just to send the Nimble Angler, of course, another way if you don't have as easy access to Sprind, but can also potentially help set up some amount of our Frog engine as well. Speaking of our Frog engine, we have replaced one of our copies of Swap Frog with a copy of Dupe Frog. Dupe Frog isn't really here for its effect, honestly. It's a when, not an if, so actually trying to add a frog monster from your deck to your hand with that effect is a lot trickier than it might seem. It's mainly here because it's got 2000 defense, like it's got a really, you know, just solid defensive body. It's got frog in its name, so we can send it from the deck to the graveyard off of swap, and or banish it with the Ronintoadin as well. But all in all, it's really just here as more or less like the next best frog monster to play over another Swap Frog. The thing about Swap Frog is it's actually still ultimately one of the best things you can summon off of Gigantic. And in turn, it ends up being one of the best things, not just for the effect that it has when it's summoned off of Gigantic, but also the fact that it's still not horrible to open with, right? There's some other techs that people have been experimenting with, namely the Hero Kid, and I did think about trying this card out myself. For those who are unfamiliar, here's Hero Kid's effect. So obviously when you special summon this off of Gigantic, it's kind of insane, right? You get to just not only summon the initial Hero Kid, but then that pulls out 2 more copies. It's kind of like the Frog engine from before, but just all front-loaded into one. The problem is that Hero Kid is abysmal to have in your hand. It doesn't do anything when normal summoned, and the only real way to use it when normal summoned is like you would any other level 2 monster, which is to summon it and then special a Spright monster. Has no utility, and the problem is you want to play 3 Hero Kid, but you never want to draw any of the copies, which is a big ask for a card you play 3 of. So Ultimately, why I'm not the hugest fan of it, if I wasn't going to play the Frog engine, I would consider playing Deep Sea Divas, although those don't really do anything when summoned off a Gigantic. I would also consider the Adventure engine, because Spright definitely does not always use its normal summon, and it definitely likes to have, well, any deck would like to have the extra Omni Negate from Griffin, of course. But the Nimbles, I think, do still remain, like, easily the best level 2 engine to play alongside Sprites, and the Melffy package is very nice as well. Although being only 2 main deck cards, it's not like quite fleshed out enough to be like a full level 2 engine there. The Fenrirs have been performing well. You know, this is actually one of the decks I think they perform best in, because all you need oftentimes is just, well, really for either the Sprind or Elf, which are oftentimes enough by themselves to get your plays going. You just need the level 2 monster plus any other monster. So the Kashtira Fenrir fills that role as an extender nicely, and can of course act as disruption and disruption bait. I've discussed this multiple times on the channel. So that's pretty much everything going on with this list, and again, I've been extremely satisfied with this list. It's not too different from what we were playing before, and it doesn't need to be, and in turn, I think it will still continue to perform very well as a tier 1 deck as I had expected. So let's go ahead and break it down card by card, and then we'll look at some gameplay. We're playing 1 Dupe Frog, 1 Spright Frog, 1 Ronintoadin, 3 Maxx, 2 Nimble Angler. We have 3 Nimble Beaver, 1 Melffy Catty, 2 Spright Blue, 1 Spright Jet, 2 Spright Red, 2 Spright Carrot, 1 Melffy Pinny, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We have the 2 Kashtira Fenrir, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 3 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Gamma Burst, 1 Spright Smashers, and then 3 Infinite Impermanence to sort of round out the main deck there. For our extra deck, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Merry Melffys, 1 Sky Cavalry Centurea, 1 Melffy of the Forest, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigantic Spright, 1 Downerd Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 IP Masquerena, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Spright Sprind, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax, and then finally an Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. That's going to do it for our list. Let us now go to the gameplay. Alright, our first game is going to be squaring off against Branded Despia. I think this was the first... Well, actually, I don't remember at all. I was going to say, is this the first time I've encountered it in the new meta? I know I played against Branded Tier before, but either way, I do expect that Branded moving forward is going to be about as good as it was, is really all I was going to say. So this is a little bit, like, maybe a bit controversial here. I'm going to start with Foolish Barreling the Angler and then going for the Nimble Beaver. The reason I call that controversial maybe is because now this Nimble Beaver in my hand doesn't really do anything, but also I'm already holding the other Nimble Angler, so in a way this Beaver also kind of didn't do anything already. If I wanted to make the Sprind play, I don't know, I probably should have thought about that Foolish Burial a little bit more. I did think that, you know, in the moment afterward, but I also... I don't know, it's really the best use of Foolish Burial to set up 2 level 2 monsters on the field, so I figured we could just go for it here. One thing I'm going to be doing a lot more playing Spright is making sure that I'm getting in the Gigantic in as early as possible. Also, I wanted to get in the Gigantic here because I wanted to make sure that I didn't get Nibiru, but in doing so, I didn't put an extra body on the board to actually protect against an Imperm with the Carrot like I had set up to, so... You know, I kind of had to pick my poison. I ultimately just decided to try to play around Nib. Again, that is something I've been making an effort to go out of my way to do, playing Sprites moving forward, is making sure that I'm getting the Gigantic effect in before you hit the 5th summon there. Because Nibiru is real. It's all over the place, and it's definitely coming for you if you're not prepared for it. So here, though, even though we did get hit with the Imperm on the Gigantic, it's not really going to matter too much. We still get to end on the Elf, Red Carrot, and the IP Masquerena. We also got the Melffy of the Forest in there as well, so we get to summon the Melffy Catty too. So lots of negates, the disruption as well. I'm feeling pretty good about the spot that we're in here. Opponent's going to start out by activating the Bestial Lubellion. I'm going to go ahead and fire off the Elf now. Just to make sure that I'm getting it in there. Well, I was going to try to get it in there before they got a Bestial Search, but it turns out they had the Druid Swarm already. So, now here's the thing. I actually kind of thought long and hard about this when I was playing the duel out. whether or not I wanted to stop this Druid Swarm, because I wasn't really concerned about losing out on the Jet. It was more that I didn't want it to hit the board and, like, you know, send one of my cards to the graveyard. So I ultimately wanted to get rid of it, and that meant using one of my League 2s as a material, which is rough because now I don't have really access to Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax with IP Masquerena anymore. I have to go for Underworld Goddess, which is probably going to be fine, but, you know, I think it's worth it. I think losing access to Avramax is worth stopping this Druid Swarm here. As a bonus, we also get to summon the Jet and activate the effect, which, again, really wasn't the main of... You know, my main intention of doing that play. It was mostly just to stop the Druid Swarm from impacting me. So, opponent's going to summon Albaz. I'm chaining both Melffy Catty and IP Masquerena. Definitely going to go into the Underworld Goddess here, as I do not want them to summon off the Mirror Jade. This actually would have been a great game to have the Nightmare Unicorn, which I don't often play in Spright anymore. I usually just play the Avramax and the Underworld Goddess. I don't know, I'm just not a huge fan of Nightmare Unicorn, kind of in general off of IP nowadays, not just in Spright, but, you know, a lot of decks that are setting up an IP don't usually have the discard necessarily all the time, and I think Spright's kind of one of those, where usually if you've got a card left in your hand at the end of your play, something you want to hold on to, like the Melffy monster, or the Maxx, or the Ash Blossom, or something like that, or whatever you search up, like the Jet or the Blue, so... here I'm going to start by normal sending the Melffy Pinny, just to get the brand new regained effect out of the way. And after that, I am going to lose my Melffy Pinny to the Branded Beast, but I already have the Spright Starter here, so it doesn't really matter. And after summoning this blue, I think my opponent just concedes. Yeah, because I mean, at this point I can definitely go into plays, and I will say this though, that it is a little bit harder to OTK with like Gamma Burst when you only have the one Jet. I guess that here I could have just made an Elf eventually and just brought back the Jet and then gone into it from there. But had that Jet gotten banished, the Gamma Burst OTK wouldn't have been nearly as accessible. For that reason, I had a few of the members over on my Discord were talking about playing Cat Shark and Pixies again to kind of help those OTK lines. And, I mean, we have the room in the main and the extra deck, so I definitely don't think that's a bad idea at all. I don't think you 100% need it, but at the same time, it definitely does not hurt to have more ways to OTK, especially when the requirement is only one of each main and extra deck slots. So, there we go. There is our first duel. Let's go ahead and dive straight into the next one here. Okay, this time we are playing against Tearlaments. I'm actually seeing more Tearlaments around than I thought I would. Not that I thought Tearlaments was going to be a bad deck, but I kind of thought that everybody else was going to think it was a bad deck, or maybe to be at least a little bit more in depth about it. I thought that people would be struggling a bit more to kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for, to optimize their Tearlament list, but it seems like it's not too bad for them here. So this time I'm going to go for the Spright Sprind before the Gigantic. Because I have the Crossout Designator, I am not particularly scared of Nibiru. I also have a Call by the Grave in case they end up having some other form of disruption as well. So all in all, we are very well insulated in our plays this time around. This is how I prefer to do this line if I have the freedom, if I feel like I have the freedom or flexibility, is to use the Sprind first and then make the Gigantic, because it frees up the extra monster zone. It just allows you to get the most bodies on board, I find. But again, in this meta in particular, with Nib being so popular and for very good reason, it ultimately ends up being the better line to just go ahead and go into Gigantic, unless again you have the Crossout Designator like I do here. So now I'm going to make the Merry Melffys, or I always call it that, the Melffy of the Forest rather, and then bring the Angler back with the Elf, make the IP, set 3 cards alongside the Spright Red, IP, Elf, and Melffy Catty. I'm liking this, and this is a lot of why I say, you know, Pure Spright does not feel like it's changed, honestly, since the ban list, because it's really just doing the exact same thing you were doing before. You might be very slightly less consistent about it, but again, the only real consistency hit that I've noticed personally is, well, besides, of course, opening Swap Frog and Spright Jet, which you don't need to do either for plays. The only real consistency hit is, again, a very minor consistency hit to how often you can Gamma Burst OTK, but it's extremely minor, and I don't think that's enough to be that impactful. I definitely wanted to gate the Shiren here with my Spright Red, by the way. I've talked about this before, but If you have the ability to negate one monster effect on the tier limit side, the Shire that's activating in hand is often a very, very good thing to negate. Yeah, as you can see here, it ultimately caused them to end up conceding right there, I think, because by negating the Shiren, right, we deny them a lot of things, actually. We denied them the free body on the board. We denied them the discard from the hand, which very easily could have been the Havness or another Shiren, maybe, to start doing some fusing. And we also denied them Mill 3 to set up their graveyard there. So by doing so, it very much limits what they're able to do, and just, yeah, the fewer options the tier limit player has, the better spot you, the opponent, are in. So I definitely want to make sure that we are curbing those plays as such. So there we have it, our next duel taken care of there. Let's take a look at our third one here. And this time around, we're up against Dragon Link, the big bad of the format. Doesn't really feel that much worse than pretty much anything else we're playing against, though, which I kind of expected to be the case, right? You know, I definitely did not think Dragon Link was going to be nearly as dominant as tier limit has been the past few months. Alright, this hand is pretty great, honestly, except for the fact that we got Maxx Seed. So, we're definitely going to chain the Spright Starter in response to the Maxx Seed. We will give our opponent one draw off the Nimble Beaver, but here I'm just going to go ahead and set up the Spright Red so we have, like, a monster negation. We do have the Nibiru on top of it, so, you know, I am not feeling super duper scared here. Opponent's going to lead with the Kashtira Fenrir. Definitely do not want to negate that because, of course, you know, I don't really care about the search, and I definitely don't want them to get a free banish for no reason there. By activating the Chaos Space and sending Abster out, our opponent is going to reveal exactly what kind of a deck they're on. It looks like they're going to summon both the Wide Reverser and the Rocket Tracer and then link the two off in order to summon the Dragoonity Knight Romulus. Here I end up using the red on the, rather against the Romulus, which, looking back, I think I probably could have picked a better choke point. Like, going second, they definitely don't need the Ravine nearly as badly, and my opponent already has the makings to, like, make an access code talker here, right? I don't really care about the Fenrir banish because I have the live Nibiru, so I wasn't really concerned about it. I guess it's also probably why I fired off the red as early as I did, is because, you know, I knew that I wasn't going to live or die by the red negation when I have a Nibiru in my hand. So here, I'm just going to wait on the Nibiru until my opponent reaches a point where they're about to make an Omni negate, or just something that can stop the Nibiru. Boral and Dragon actually cannot stop the Nibiru. It only negates an onboard monster effect, so if they want to link into that, they can. I'm kind of surprised, again, they didn't go for an access code line here, but that's totally fine for me if they don't want to. And I think they might be a new Dragon Link player for that play you just saw there. I think that they thought they could pop the back row with Tracer, but alas, no. Tracer can only destroy a face-up card on the field, so it had to pop itself there. Opponent is doing their best to make a recovery play, bouncing off of that, using the Recharger and Striker Dragon to bring back the triple burst, but yeah, even if they were not about to enter the battle phase, or even if I didn't have the Nibiru, rather, they were about to enter the battle phase, and that would not have been enough to beat me there. And thankfully, they had a bunch of leak monsters on their board, so the resulting Nibiru token is going to have only 100 defense points. It's going to be very, very easy to run over. I'm just going to roll some of the Swat Frog and then Specialist Spright Blue. I'm going to use Blue to add Jet. I'm actually going to add Starter and not the Gamma Burst here because I have the Nibiru on the board. I definitely value the Starter more highly to offer some insulation against, you know, the potential of a monster effect from the hand here. This Ash Blossom is not the kind of thing I'm going to use the red against, though. That is, I'm 100% okay letting that resolve, because that definitely does not stop me from winning here. I get to just overlay the blue with the Sprind to go into the Gigantic. Use Gigantic to pull Carrot out of the deck, and now I get to bring back the Ronin as well. I'll make an Elf just to, like, have another, like, decent body on the board in case I need it, but from here on, like, I have a monster effect and a spell trap negate both set up, as well as the Ash Blossom, and far more than enough damage on the board. So, I mean, I found even pre-banless that a lot of the time you didn't need Gamma Burst to necessarily finish your opponent off, and they didn't even let me get the last blow in there. They conceded first, womp womp, but oh well, it doesn't matter at all. So there we have it, our game against Dragon Link. We do have one more duel to check out for this video. Let's go straight into it. This last duel is going to be against Runic Stun, and this was actually my first duel with this Spright deck. playing it here in the new meta. Oh, no, sorry, that's not true. I did have a going second game before this, but my going second games this session were just not good. Like, my first game actually with this deck here post banless was I went second against a Nurse Burn, and I draw phase Maxx only to get hit with, like, you know, normal summon Nurse. Sorry, search Nurse for the Dark Lord spell, normal summon it, sat 3, activate Card of Demise. Activate 2 Upstart Goblins, already putting me down to like 6,000, and then set 2 more, and it's like, all right, I'm just gonna concede here. So, I know sometimes I do see comments of like, you know, you need to show more going second games. This isn't an accurate representation, etc., etc. I'm not opposed to showing going second games and/or games where I lose. In fact, I think the next video is gonna have one of those, but I don't want to show them if they're not interesting. Is the thing. And even the going second games that you win, a good amount of the time you draw phase Maxx and your opponent just kind of like concedes, so that's like not very interesting to watch either. So I definitely do show going second and or losses. You can see plenty of them throughout the channel, but you know, again, I only want to do that if they're actually going to be interesting duels. So in any case here, I'm setting up a pretty typical turn 1. I actually kind of misplayed this turn 1 setup here. I could have made the Melffy of the Forest sooner and used it as a material to make the IP, and then I could have had a Spright Red on the board, basically instead of the Melffy of the Forest, because you might notice I ended up using the red as a material there, which I didn't really want to do, but I ultimately did. So, opponent's going to start with a Hugin summon. I'm actually going to let this resolve. Like, even if I had the Spright Red on the board, like, I'd probably be totally fine with this. Like, you notice I have the Imperm down, I'm not negating this Hugin. It's because I actually thought my opponent was going to be on, like, a Runic Spright variant of some kind, but I also have so much to stop my opponent here. Like, I'm already about to use the Penny to summon, I believe I do go for the Herald of the Arclight here. Yes, Herald of the Arclight. I've got the Spright Smashers for the actual Runic Fountain itself. I've got the... Oh, I use IP Masquerena because for some reason here I thought I had the Nightmare Unicorn in my extra deck, but I don't. So I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'll just go for Underworld Goddess, and now if they had a Spright monster in hand, they can't use it. Which now I know there are stun variants, so they didn't. But you know, if I was playing Nightmare Unicorn, that would have been a phenomenal play. But in any case, so here. I'm going to ultimately use the Spright Smashers on the second back row that they set, and if you look, that actually ends up being skill drain. Now, I only point this out when it happens, so this could very easily just be confirmation bias, but when I played the TCG, I spent a lot of time as a stun player, and let me tell you something, I developed a habit after a while playing stun decks that I set my most important back row second, because my thought process was, well, if you set it as the first back row, that's too obvious, I'll just snipe it. Setting it as the last back row also feels too obvious, so I would just set it, my most important back row, as the second one. So if I had to snipe one out of like 3 or 4 back rows like I did here, I usually just go for the second one. And again, could be confirmation bias, but you know, I did hit the skill drain. To be fair, we have the starter for the Carrot as well as the Herald of the Arclight. So like, my opponent was always going to lose 3 out of their 4, you know, back row disruptions, but I just like that we managed to hit the skill drain. It just reaffirms this little idea I've had in my head for a while. But in any case, that's going to go ahead and do it for these games. Thank you all very much for watching. Let's just move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.